Hello, everyone. My name is Samuel Khateeb, and I'm an assistant professor in the Department of Computer Science, Design, and Journalism. Today, I will try to cover briefly my project, which has been generously funded by the Center for Undergraduate Research and Scholarship here at Creighton. The project idea started when I was a graduate student and I wanted to study cyber flash mobs. At that time, there was a lack of literature and datasets to study such a phenomenon. Then I was able to find some social science theories, such as the theory of collective action, and this helped me in understanding, studying, and modeling cyber flash mobs. However, data was a bigger problem. So I used to check online for news of events that exhibit cyber flash mobs like behavior, and then quickly try to collect its data, and then and basically case by case or event by event, and then study its characteristics. So the idea of creating a project that basically systematically be able to um, collect data about cyber flash mobs and have some analytics capabilities to try to understand this phenomena better is always there, and thanks to was always there, but thanks to Cura's fund that helped me in working on basically accomplishing this goal. So the system or the project actually goal was to design and implement a data repository for cyber flash mobs. And basically the system should help me in better understand and study this phenomenon. Before I start talking about the project itself and the design and implementations of it, I want to give you all a little bit of background about cyber flash mobs. So Cyber Flash Mob is an event that is organized via social media, email, SMS, or other forms of digital communication technologies, where a group of people who might have an agenda or not can basically get together online or offline and then collectively do something, then disperse either quickly or over a period of time. From looking at the literature, studying the literature, um, and basically try to look at the different forms of cyber flash mobs. I find that cyber flash mobs actually have different forms and they're called differently, but the major there was a common, I would say, factors that determine the form of a cyber flash mob. And these factors that I basically found by studying the literature are agenda, the time it takes for the cyber flash mobs to basically be done or to be conducted, and also the involvement of violent act in them or not. And based on these three factors, different forms of cyber flash mobs exist. For example, deviant cyber flash mobs are the flash mobs that have agenda, and this agenda could be political, could be religion, whatever agenda that the organizers of that event have. And then also it take place either on a very short period of time, within maybe 20 minutes or so, and then also it involve violent act. If violent act doesn't exist, it's just it has an agenda and then happens within 20 minutes or so, and then we call this something called smart mob. Um, Another type of cyber flash mobs is something called long mob. And if you guys remember the ice bucket challenge, it could be an example of a long mob because it took place or it happens over a longer period of time. And of course, there is the regular cyber flash mobs that were basically proposed back in 2003 as a social experiment by the senior Harper magazine, Bill Wasik. And he wanted to have fun, he wanted to conduct an experiment for the hipsters in New York, so Manhattan. So he created his famous flash mob experiment. And then these are usually for fun. They happen with a short period of time. They usually don't have agenda other than just making people enjoy the place or enjoy their shopping experience if they do it, for example, in a mall, or to have fun, for example, when a group of people wear like blue t-shirts and go to Best Buy, things of that nature. These are what we call flash mobs or traditional flash mobs. So all this literature review actually that I conducted is actually submitted to a journal. It's called Social Network Analysis and Mining, or SNAM, and hopefully the results will be published soon by the end of this year. So the system that I developed is something I call the Cyber Flash Mob Analyzer. What is Cyber Flash Mob Analyzer is basically a tool that first started by designing and implementing a data repository. And this data repository gets its information from using Twitter APIs. So we can collect data from Twitter based on keywords, hashtags, users. All the data collected are public data. So if a user set their account to private, then we won't be able to collect their data. So the information are collected using Twitter RESTful API, and then they are basically uploaded to the database that I designed and implemented. And I also have a set of Python codes that do different pre-processing to the data. For example, reformatting the date of the tweet to put it in a specific format so that tool can basically read it and understand it. Basically, we use different APIs that help us in getting more data about what we've collected. And two data APIs that we've used, one of them is called Perspective API, which is developed by Google. And then this API basically give you a score of how toxic a text is. And then the score will be from 0 to 1. 0 meaning that this text is not toxic versus 1 meaning this text is toxic. So I wanted to see or wanted to look at these tweets and try to find out which one is more toxic, and hopefully we can find indicators of, for example, violent flash mobs or deviant cyber flash mobs based on toxicity and stuff like that. So that's one of the APIs that I used. I also used another API called Botometer API. And Botometer API is an API that again give you a score between 0 and 1 for each account. And 0 meaning that this account is a human versus 1 meaning this account is a bot or a social bot. And this tool is actually developed by the Observatory on Social Media at Indiana University, and it was the result of their funded project by DARPA. And it's used widely by different researchers who study social bots. Many researchers actually pointed that there is a lot of bots in social media in general, and just on Twitter, there's almost 50% of the Twitter accounts are actually either automated or social bots. So I wanted to see how many of these actually I have when there is a flash mob. So there is a flash mob, how many humans versus how many bots are participating, and how different they are in terms of their behavior. So that's why I use this basically API. In addition to that, I've written Python code that extract different information from the tweets and then try to build networks. For example, extracting the URLs of the tweet, like any URL mentioned, and try to build a network of user URL. Or all the hashtags, try to build a network of user and hashtags, all the tweets and retweets and mentions, and try to build a communication network. So there are these Python codes that actually I've written to do that. Once I finished the data design and implementation, populating the database with some data, I wanted to create a tool that can actually access that data and give me some analytics. So I designed or created a tool called Cyber Flash Mobs Analyzer. It's a website that you guys can visit by scanning this QR code or just going to this URL in here. And when it's a tool that you can basically register with username and password. And when you access it, you will see 3 types of analysis. Sorry about that. Records analysis, Twitter analysis, and network analysis. Record analysis is the one that give you information about the records that I collected, how many, for example, tweets, how many retweets, how many mentions, the toxicity score of each one of these records, what is the posting frequency, like how many posts we have per day, and then some other more analytics like the keywords used to collect this data or the language of the users who tweeted this data and so on. Tweeters provide information about the tweeters themselves. For example, how toxic these tweeters are they bot, are they human? Again, what is their posting frequency and other information that is basically related to that tweeter. Network analysis is the page that you see a lot, three type of networks, and then, for example, the communication network of the people who participated in this flash mob, or cyber flash mob. How many, like for example, who are the users who are sharing a specific URL, who are the users who are sharing a specific hashtag. So these are all kind of information that can we get from network analysis. And of course, I envision developing more analytics in the future for this tool. So all the data that I've collected, actually, sorry, not all of them, part of the data that I've actually collected were processed and put in this data repository. I've started collecting data since June 18, 2020. Sorry, July 3rd, 2018, and until June 18, 2020, I have all that data is basically pre-processed, went through all these steps, and are currently saved in the database and accessed via the tool. I've got around 1.2 or 1.3 almost a million tweets. These were tweeted by 897,000 tweeters. They contain around more than 50,000 URL and then around 30,000 different hashtags. I have data since then. I've been collecting data all this time, but not all of them, as I mentioned. They are in the database. This is just what I've basically pre-processed and put in the database. I did an exploratory study to try to understand the role of social bots during cyber flash mobs, and then the findings of this study. We submitted it, me and my one of the undergraduate students that I'm working with. We submitted to a conference called SBP BRIMS, which stands for International Conference on Social Computing, Behavioral Culturing, Modeling, and Prediction, and Behavioral Representation in Modeling and Simulation. Hopefully this conference will happen in July, and then we anticipate that our paper hopefully will get accepted. We had some findings, such as social bots share their location and language less than humans. Humans usually are more toxic than bots. Communication networks of the social bots and the humans are different. We see humans are more communicative, and they are more connected for more communities than social bots. And usually social bots and humans, both of them retweet a lot. However, the bots have a tendency to retweet more than humans. And then also humans tends to use URL shortening service more than the social bots, so that actually they can basically use the rest, because we have in Twitter 280 characters, so that human can basically put a URL in addition to that, type some more text. For the future work, I envision this tool to be just like the first step in many work to be done in the future. And I hope to be able to recruit more undergraduate students to help me in basically working on this tool, on this project. There is a lot of enhancements that need to be done to the tool itself. And then also in terms of research, I want to do a lot of research on cyber flash mobs. One of them is basically try to devise a methodology to identify cyber flash mobs. So given all these data, what are the indicators that we can say, yes, here is a flash mob? One of the things that we just started to look at was actually the posting frequency. So looking at if we are collecting data about a specific hashtag or from specific tweeter, and then we see a jump in the activities and the number of posts in that day or in that time, a specific time frame, then this could be an indication of there's something going on. We actually looked at, for example, the posting frequency for all the data that we have currently in the database. And we find there was one peak on December 14, 2019. Looking at the data, we were able to identify a few cyber flash mobs, and these are ranging from reposting a video of flash mob that happened in Seattle back in 2010 to a video of a flash mob that happened in a mall in Japan in 2016, to more recent flash mob that happened in Thailand in December 14, 2019. Where a lot of people were basically protesting in Thailand and when authorities in Thailand moved to ban a party that has rallied opposition to the government of former military ruler, I think his name is Prayut Chan-o-cha. So definitely we'll be working on trying to find ways to identify cyber flash mobs and also study flash mobs on different platforms like YouTube and new Facebook and other platform flash mob, other social media sites. Thank you.